This rivalry is real. The stare down ahead of Sunday's showdown of the Premier League's heavyweights is on. And judging by Pep and Jurgen's comments earlier this week, it looks as if the gloves have finally come off in Liverpool and City's fight for supremacy. Hi guys, yes, with 4 days to go now until their first league meeting of the season, has the Liverpool-Manchester City rivalry developed suddenly an edge it didn't used to have? We'll have the tale of the tape, as it were, the latest from Manchester for you on a midweek show that skips between Europe and England. Here's our agenda. Well, of course, we'll get into Pep's comments on Mane, Klopp's on tactical fouling, and celebrate this respectful rivalry finally becoming a beef. But first, we'll be reviewing a manic night of Champions League action and looking forward to more tonight. And seeing as we're off to Manchester, we'll also gauge the mood at United, where uncertainty now appears to be the norm. Yeah, loads of good stuff coming your way. And as I said, we are in Manchester, which I think if you're a regular watcher of the show means you know who the guest is. Yes, it's the man who covers Manchester football for the Evening Standard, James Robson. Now, talk about this for authenticity. I can see you sitting there in your car, James, with the rain, the Manchester rain, pelting down outside. Where are you?
It's a typical Manchester day. I'm currently at Carrington, waiting in the car park. It's absolutely pouring down with rain. Squirrels running around in front of me. Just waiting to speak to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer ahead of the Europa League game tomorrow. All
right, you're waiting to hear from him. We will talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a little bit later on the show. But our focus to start off with will be on what happened on a crazy night of Champions League action. I say crazy, crazy good. Liverpool getting a job done. We'll talk about them in just a moment here. Holland scoring again for Salzburg. Barcelona held. That's part of a fascinating group which saw Dortmund come from 2 down against Inter and win 3-2. Elsewhere, the significant stories, that amazing game at Stamford Bridge between Chelsea and Ajax, which we'll deal with in just a moment, and the big winners of the night, Valencia, tightening things up there. So let's get straight into group action. We'll deal with Liverpool first because we're going to talk about them in some detail later on. Winning 2-1 against Genk, and in so doing, getting the job done. Just about there, 9 points from 4. But the main thing about that was, with Manchester City around the corner, getting that job done. And once more, it must be noted, it was Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain who played a key role in this, pivoting and firing home a very important goal for them, as it was more slender a result than they would have wanted. But the significance, James, is that they've now got options in this side. I've just put these stats up for Oxlade-Chamberlain since he came back into the first team. Very productive, and Klopp likes him, doesn't he? He likes his long-range shooting. He likes that he offers something different.
There's a lot to like about Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think most teams in the Premier League would love to be able to have a player like him who's not necessarily a starter, but who you can bring on in games when you're wanting to rest players, but also to change games. He is a game changer. We've seen that.
He seems to be a midweek player. I mean, there's not a sense at this stage, because of course he had a fantastic midweek the week before, and yet we didn't expect to see him at the weekend. Is he just an option? Is it usually the front three for a game like City, but with the Ox absolutely first in line to come on?
I would say at the moment, but the thing about that Liverpool midfield is that, look, that might just be the weakest area of their team. And you look at it and think there are changes that could be made. Wijnaldum, before last year, you thought, well, is he quite up to it? Is he irregular? And he's absolutely a critical player now. And Chamberlain, before that injury, he looked like he was really finding his best form.
OK, well, images coming through here of a Champions League victory. And again, everything has to be put into the context of what else happens this week. We'll get onto that. Let's park it for the time being and come back to Liverpool and Manchester City in just a moment, because we're going to do the Champions League right now, and we've got to do this game justice, because Group H is as tight as you could be, unless you're Lille, who are obviously going to come bottom of that one. So Ajax then 4 against Chelsea, having led 4-1 with 2 players sent off. You know, 2 of their 5 shots actually came when they were down to 9 men, with the score at 4-4. That's just Ajax for you. And look at this headline here from the Mirror. I think it was 4-4. Why not? You don't see games like that, even with disallowed VAR decisions at the end for goals and everything like that. James, before we get into anything else about refereeing or anything like that, what a ridiculous spectacle, wasn't it? Amazing.
It was. I absolutely loved it. And I've got to say, this season, I'm just loving watching Chelsea. They're taking us all on a ride. And maybe they are this year's Ajax. You know, they've got that same sort of youthful vigour, and they've got their frailties as well. But that makes them into this must-watch spectacle.
Yeah, and the thing about this game as well is it served to remind us that, look, they're not the real deal just yet. Yes, they've put this tremendous run of results together, but, you know, defensively they're not there. The other major talking point would be that double red carding and the penalty award. Now, I hear Dusan Tadic saying it's harsh, you know, these three things all happening at the same time. But I don't know, I work my way through the incidents and I'm going, yeah, okay, it's going to have to be a yellow for Blind, play the advantage. Yes, it's a handball. Yes, you give the penalty. And if he did open his trap and Veltman and talk too much, then it's going to be a second yellow, right? It just doesn't happen all in a row like that very often, does it?
Absolutely. You just feel like the world's collapsing, closing in on you when it happens in the space of 90 seconds or whatever it is. But yeah, like you say, individually, probably no complaints.
All right, fine. Let's move on to Group F, because as I said when I looked at the results just now, this really is the group and was from the get-go here. But it took a little bit of a twist, didn't it, last night, with Barcelona's frustrations and problems, and there are plenty of those at that club right now, compounded by Slavia Prague picking up just their second point of this incredibly tough group. Then there was that incredible game in Germany. Inter 2-up, suddenly Dortmund with Hakimi the star with a brace winning it by 3-2. This is the story, though. If you've not seen Antonio Conte's reaction to this, you need to. He's come out here in a fury, according to this paper here. And his fury is directed at his own club. He came out and said, I blame the directors. I blame the directors because they left us a bit thin. The squad's not strong enough. They need to be accountable to the media. The other headline here was, of course, the fact that Andrej Kuller, who's having a fantastic season for Slavia Prague, continued his form and kept Messi and company out. But Messi not passing to Griezmann seems to be a story there. One way or another, James, that's turning into a fascinating group, largely because of the Conte situation, for instance. I mean, for him to start going off at the club's authorities, you know, the directors, this early in the campaign, whoa, it takes us back to Chelsea a bit, doesn't it?
I was just thinking that I think there'll be many people at Stamford Bridge who will recognise those sort of comments. I saw Conte in the summer. And he was putting a lot of pressure on the directors even then about signing Lukaku from United. He's not afraid to make it political at all, but usually that ends up in one way.
Well, OK, let's turn our attention to what happens tonight. Dare we hope for as much drama in the Wednesday night, Thursday morning fixtures. OK, a quick look at those ones. And PSG looking to carry on their serene progress. In fact, they and Manchester City looking to get the job done in every single sense. Spurs locked together with the Red Star. That's a huge one. And remember, of course, these are the repeat fixtures of the last round of matches too. So we'll pick those apart on Friday's show once they come out. But let's just focus on a couple of clubs here, the English clubs here. In Group C, as I said, Manchester City sitting with a perfect record, 9 points from 3 matches, travel to Italy to take on Atalanta. Now, the interesting thing about this one is not really whether they qualify, but what Pep does in terms of his team selection. As this headline here really points out, he won't be left red-faced with selection. His point here is that he's focusing on this game, he says, rather than projecting what he picks for Anfield. Do we believe him, James? Do we think he's just going to go gung-ho for Atalanta and then pick Liverpool's team after that?
He's very good at saying these sorts of things. But if you think for a second that Liverpool aren't at the forefront of his mind, then I think you're misunderstanding just how important the Champions, the title and this Liverpool game is to him. However, the Champions League is also crucial. The thing about City is they've got such a strong squad. He can make changes. It really doesn't matter, does it? You know, he can make changes and expect to win tonight without any issues.
Yeah, we'll talk about them again in a little bit more detail when we get to that Liverpool City chat. Let's move on now to the other English club here, and that would be Spurs. And as far as they're concerned, they find themselves, as I said, against Red Star. 4 points for them, and it's tight. It's going to be a battle. This could turn out to be an absolutely pivotal one for them. Remember, it's managerless Bayern who are top of this group. I'm not going to go into the details of the game too much here, but obviously the fact is that the Kane and Son travelled for this one. And this was after the red card was rescinded, the one they received in that horrendous incident involving Andre Gomez the other day against Everton. James, give me your take on this one. I'm still baffled by this one, because if they see fit to and it wasn't an upgraded yellow, it was a straight red, right, from Martin Atkinson, who seems completely shot by now. How come he's now not being backed by the authorities? Because it's not the PGMOL who decide this, it's the FA. So they're in a right mess now, aren't they?
Yes, in a word. I've got to say, I didn't think it was a red card. I think the whole incident kind of overtook the nature of the foul. So I think it is the right decision that it's rescinded. But yeah, you're right. It does feel like a bit of a mess now.
Yeah, okay, fine. I think we all have to agree with that. Let us know what you think about the situation and the circumstances. And of course, we've got this meeting between the referees and the managers, and it really is getting out of hand. Okay, rivalry. You want a rivalry? We think we might just have one. We'll get into this one with the gloves being off when we come back. I don't think we're going a bit early on our build-up to Liverpool-Manchester City. We're not, because this week's all about that. This is the defining game so far of this season. These two clubs who are setting exceptional standards are building this rivalry in terms of football. But it's always been a very respectful, friendly rivalry. I mean, these were the sort of headlines that you used to get in the past. Pep's the best, says Jurgen Klopp. A mutual love-in down the years. Jurgen, it's Pep, details of Guardiola calling ahead of the final in the Champions League. And James Robson of the Evening Standard, who covers Manchester football, is with me right now. And as we continue to show these loving shots between these two, this has been something that we've all noted, isn't it? That as fierce as the rivalry might have been on the pitch, these two have always been tremendously friendly, at least superficially, at least at face value. Yes. I think they both understand the media really well. And I think they both do put themselves across very well, and probably realise the implications of any sign of, let's say, animosity between them. So that they're very clever in the way they address the media. Okay, fine. So, come on, let's be honest. We weren't necessarily happy with that, were we? We thought, okay, that's not what we're used to. We're used to Ferguson against Wenger. We're used to Rafa Benitez and his facts. We're used to Mourinho and Wenger, or whatever it may be. And then suddenly the mask slipped. And in the wake of those incredible comebacks by both clubs last weekend, this was it. Pep came out and he talked about Mane, and he talked about diving, and suddenly, because of all the rugby last weekend, rucking gets a mention, and diving. And then we look at the comments and we think to ourselves, oh, Pep, what have you done here? Because a classic Pep quote, this one, in which I showed this on the show the other day. He talks about Mane being a special talent. And then if we get on to the end, sometimes he's diving, sometimes he has this talent to score incredible goals in the last minute. He's a talent. So does that mean he has a talent for diving? Well, that, of course, was good enough to get everybody's attention. I just wonder, James, just quickly, I guess he must have been frustrated. They had to work so hard to come back against Southampton, and then Liverpool go and do it again. He's only human, but he slipped, didn't he? I think he did. He's a very emotional person. You see him on the touchline. You see him at the end of games when all that emotion pours out. And of course, when he comes to speak to us, the media, after a game, it's not that long after that. So the emotion is still there. And maybe someone's just said to him on the touchline, Liverpool have gone and done it as well. But even still, even with all of that, he must have known how that would come across. And I'm not entirely sure it was an accident. Okay, let's see where the story goes from there. Let's get some feedback away for the first time tonight. Wesley, Guardiola's dig on Mane should be viewed as a backhanded compliment to a Liverpool team who he may finally view as an equal to his City team. That being said, I definitely don't see these two having a toxic spat like Mourinho versus Wenger in the past. A healthy and competitive rivalry as fans rejoice at the clash of two teams, arguably at the peak of their powers. Yeah, very sensible, absolutely right. We're having a bit of fun with this one. But remember, Jurgen Klopp then came to this particular party, as it were, because once that was out there and once fans started reacting and once the headlines were being generated, you had Jurgen. And he gave it the old, I'm not even thinking about them. I've got a midweek game to think about here. He did take the time out to say, no, it's wrong to call my player a diver. Talked about the decision at the weekend. And then it was up and running, wasn't it? Can't waste my time. Mind Games starts getting aired. That's the first time we've seen Mind Games associated with these two. And on we go. And then it was this one. He is fixated with Liverpool. This is just absolute manna, isn't it, for the press? Just a quick look at that quote here. I promise not to mention tactical fouls. He then went in. That's maybe already too much, but that's the only thing I'll say about it. Jurgen, that is enough. Right, James, so that was it. It takes two to tango, and Jurgen tangoed, and he brought up those tactical fouls, because that is the button that really, really Pep hates being pushed.
That, you're absolutely right. And once again, do you think Jurgen doesn't know that? He knows exactly what he's doing there. Yeah, look, it's not the first time that's been brought up by people, and Guardiola always fires back. I think Solskjaer mentioned it last season. Jose Mourinho mentioned it before. Look, it is an issue, and I'm sure other managers look at this and it infuriates them. But that, to me, shows that Guardiola probably got a little bit under Klopp's skin as well, because he didn't need to react. Didn't need to react at all. But he's chosen to. And you've got to remember, these are two huge competitors. And whether they respect each other or not, and this goes back to Germany as well, where Klopp had a great record against Pep. Whether they respect each other or not, they're huge competitors, and any advantage they can get, they'll try to take it.
And that's a really good point that you make too, James, because remember, when any manager, coach speaks, they do so because they know that the resonance of their comments goes to the media, but also, let's not forget, to the officials. Now, I'm not suggesting anything deliberately underhand here, but when you put something out about diving or tactical fouling, you have an agenda, don't you? You're hoping something might stick.
Well, the fact is, as soon as you say something like that, there is the potential for it to stick. So, yeah, you say that Mane dives sometimes. Well, the likelihood is it's going to be in the referee's head. And, of course, we're going to mention it a lot in the media. So, therefore, it's going to become an agenda for that week. And I suppose this was Klopp's best way of firing back at that. So, like, OK, well, if the referee's going to be thinking about that, how about you look at tactical fouls as well?
Tell me a bit now about where this has gone, because what's happened now is that in his press conference yesterday, Pep Guardiola has kind of backed away from all this, going, no. What I was saying was that my kids kept saying to me, why do Liverpool keep winning late? He turned it into a line about how good they must be to be able to keep coming up with this. He backed away from the whole diving thing here. You've seen enough of him, James, to know that he's going to do this. We're going to put the head-to-head between them up right now, but do give me some insights into why Pep might be thinking, I've made a boo-boo here and I need to back away, because this in itself is a compelling enough football rivalry, and he knows that Klopp just about has the edge.
Look, there's a couple of things here. I think you've got to remember just how draining it was on Pep, that rivalry with Mourinho when they were in Spain together. Guardiola ended up taking a sabbatical after that. It was absolutely draining. He probably doesn't want that again. And it was notable that when they both pitched up in Manchester, there really was a bit of a kind of like if you want, a phony war sort of thing going on. They didn't want to get involved in that again. So maybe he doesn't want to get involved in that again. But sometimes with him as well, and you find this at a press conference, you'll ask him a question, he'll say something, you think, wow, did he really say that? And then you'll push him on it again. And he'll say, no, I didn't mean that. And you think, you've lost your story there, because on the one hand, it sounded like he was saying it. With this, again, he's made his point. He's got it across. It's everywhere now. And it doesn't matter what he says after it with the backtracking. He's already said it.
And the other thing as well, we showed you those stats there of the head-to-head between Pep and Klopp, just to reinforce the fact that not many managers, if any, have the edge on him. It's Jurgen Klopp. And this is it. Look, his points, this is Pep's points against these other big managers. He fares by far the worst against Jurgen Klopp. 1.77 points per game against Jose, 1.93 against Arsene Wenger, close to 2 against Pochettino. Klopp is the one that he has struggled against. Just time for a bit more feedback here. Suren, Anfield's a nightmare for all clubs. Hopefully they bring up the lead to 9 points by beating up Manchester City. Mane definitely to score after Pep's comments, you say. Imran, mind games have begun. Both Pep and Aguero have fired their shots. Yep, that's right. Sergio said it too. Klopp did it in a subtle manner. Liverpool players will let their football do the talking. This matchup will be contenders versus defenders. Oh, I see some mind games from the Liverpool and recent week or so. The Liverpool result, away performances and results going their way. What happens next? Off they go to Bournemouth in a miserable, wet and windy outing. Never looked like winning it. And as a result of that, they find themselves mired in this mid-table, literally this mid-table position here. They do so because as far as their form is concerned, just that win there to show, not really much going for them at all. And as far as fixtures are concerned, you then look ahead and say, can you confidently predict that they will string a run of results together in these matches? James Robson, who covers Manchester United and Manchester football for the Evening Standard, is our guest today here. This is one of the headlines I found interesting. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been talking about what I'm missing, what's not clicking. He looked for that magical number 10, James. There's always something, isn't there? But it clearly comes down to this is something that you were writing about in the Evening Standard. Players, they're constantly stories coming out saying we need someone different, we need something different, we need to be better. this can't keep on, can it? I mean, I know January is just around the corner, but is it all about recruitment?
Right now, it certainly is about recruitment, because that squad looks so thin. Without Paul Pogba, where is the real quality in midfield? They're desperately lacking a centre forward who can score goals. It's not just that. It's not just about that. It's about creating goals. So I understand that number 10 thing, and they do like James Maddison. Those, you talk about that good week that they had. When you break it down, so they won in Partizan and they won at Chelsea, two really good results. They won by virtue of 3 goals, all from set pieces. And in those 2 games, they had 4 shots on target.
Yeah.
Now, if you're relying on your shots on target to come from set pieces, then you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I fully understand that. I mean, let's go into, I think, something that really caught my eye here. This was from the Manchester Evening News. Now, the Manchester Evening News tend to toe the line when it comes to supporting the Manchester clubs. It tends to be the nature of things here. But for them to run an article that said Fabio Capello has told or suggested that Max Allegri should manage at Old Trafford. What he was saying there was to Allegri, the former Juventus coach, of course, don't go to Bayern. Don't go and take the Bayern job. Hold out for England. Hold out for United. And of course, it's a little while ago. This was from the New Straits Times, saying that Allegri has said, yes, I am taking English lessons, and that might be a move for me. So James, I was just fascinated to think that a paper like the MEN would actually run a story like that, saying, yeah, Allegri's out there, and he should really be thinking about this job because Capello told him to.
Well, this is the big problem for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is that it looks like a job that's there waiting for someone to take as soon as United pull the plug again, which has frankly been their modus operandi since Fergie left. And ever since he took the job, there was that feeling. Obviously, Allegri became available after leaving Juventus. I remember I was told in the summer that he was going to wait on taking the job because he wanted to see what was happening at United. We can see that now. I think if Pochettino was to leave Spurs, if that carries on the way it looks like it's going, that would really test United's resolve in terms of their faith in Solskjaer. That would be interesting. But this is just the general atmosphere around the club now, and it's going to be, because it's just not happening on the pitch at all. And generally, there's only one outcome when that is the case. From United's point of view, I will say they are saying behind the scenes they're absolutely behind Solskjaer. They're backing him all the way. But I'm sorry, but we've heard that before.
James, I'd better let you get away and get to that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer press conference, where I'm not sure if he's going to talk about Allegri at all, but he'll certainly talk about European action and everything else there is to come. Many thanks for sharing your insights, and do keep dry.
I'll try.
James Robson there in Manchester for us. So, as you can see, our build-up to the huge game this weekend has already begun. It'll continue on Friday's show, but don't worry, we'll cover everything else to do with the Premier League and the major European stories ahead of this weekend. As ever, between now and then, feel free to get in touch with us via our Facebook page, and we'll see you again on Friday. Until then, thanks for